Are live. Have a great meeting, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Political Liaison for February 12th, 2024. So let's do identification of a media. I don't see any. Adoptions of the agenda. Is there any additions? If not, can I have a mover? Moved by Audrey, second by Carrie. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seen uncarried. There's no delegations today. So let's go to number 5, adoption of political liaison minutes and action items for January 2022. Is there a mover for the minutes? Moved by Audrey, seconder. Second by Elena. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seen uncarried. Yep. Can you just use your, thanks.
If you're absent for a meeting, is it right for you to move and second a resolution to adopt those minutes if you were not here? It's asking to approve the minutes, right? But see, I was absent then.
Yeah. So I think you have to be here to approve them.
Okay.
Minutes. Yeah. So let's go to number 6, Ontario Works, January 2024 monthly report. It was all in your Dropbox. We have Sandy here, Sandy Porter, if there's any questions or comments on his report. Cynthia?
Is that available to the public on here, these reports? They can see it? I was just wondering if you could just give a high-level overview.
Can you bring it up? Sandy, we're going to bring it up, and then if you can do high level. The 4th one down, 5th one down. Yeah. Go down one more. There you go. There you go. Up, down. Okay, we're just getting it set up, Sandy. That's not it? That's it. Okay. You want to just start and then we'll put it up, Sandy? Sandy, you're muted. Yeah, muted. Muted. It's Monday morning.
Okay, can you hear me?
No, I can.
Okay. Okay, so summary of the statistics, number of clients served in December. So we had 565, and there's the breakdown for you. As you can see, the singles without children are the highest. And then January, in December, we were at 565, and I just looked at the numbers, and now we're at 589. And the second stat is the benefit disbursements. That's the expenses and the caseload since April to December. So the in April we were at, in the beginning of the fiscal we were at 484, And in December, we were at 465. So there was a approximate reduction of 18,000. And the caseload, we're at 578 in December. And in April, we're at 585. So there was a difference of 10 cases. I think when I look back, there's not a lot of change from month to month, but one big change that we've seen in the past, say 5 years, 4 years, or I guess since COVID, that was a big change. There was a fairly significant fluctuation, and then my assumption is that a lot of individuals was receiving CERB but we don't have. I think we would see a significant difference if there was, like, say, a big company that started, like, say, what you call a big industrial manufacturing plant, or Walmart or something like that would opened up. Then we would see probably a significant fluctuation, but there's not a lot of change from month to month. For closures, we also have closures so our lowest closure was in December, which was 6, and then the highest closures was in June. So in the summer months, there was more closures, and those closures, reasons is because some may be working, relocated, granted ODSP, granted old age security, and sometimes it's just unknown. We just don't know. We don't have any contact with them. So the comparative data for applications from April to December, you can see there from the singles on the bottom of the totals there. You scroll down a little bit. So there's 303 for singles. That's our biggest number. On the far right hand side there, the 495 is the total of the applications from April to December. Next is the additional client supports by the Ontario Works Navigator. We're testing this. It's real challenging for some individuals to access identification. So we're kind of just testing this. So the numbers aren't really high. And we have an individual on contract right now. The contract ends March 31st. So you can see that the birth certificates were the highest with 27, and then status cards, individuals requested assistance with status cards. Those were the two highest. Birth certificates was 27 and status cards was 16, but the numbers aren't really high. Transitional support fund, you can scroll down. So that's just a snapshot from April to December. You can see utility arrears was 16,000, rent arrears was 12,000, housing supports 101,000, health and safety 21,000, for a grand total of 150,000. So we still have January, February, and March, or what do we got? We're already in February, so we have just a few weeks left. I just want to, if you can scroll to the next. So the transitional support fund at February 8th, we were at 5,000. So it was low, but the ministry reached out and they provided us an additional 66,000 till the end of March. But I'm not sure whether we're going to be able to spend that or not. But our annual budget is 195,900. But getting money at the end of the fiscal year is a real challenge. So, but we're doing our best we can to spend the money. We've been working with Jordan's principal, at times the family well-being department, housing department, helping with arrears or any health and safety requests that they get. So that's a good thing that we can do that, and we have collaboration with our department. So, but no doubt we're gonna spend the 195 and then part of the 66. We've increased our, just as a FYI, we've increased our amounts that we approve for the transitional support fund because of the inflation. It's all across the board, like for labor, for parts, just everything, due to inflation. So the cost to do business has increased. So what we did is we increased our amounts for the transitional support fund so that we can make sure that we're assisting the community. If we left our rates, say for an example, if you get a ramp that's $8,000, then or 6,000, sometimes we have to cost share. And then at times we can fund it within the amounts that we have. Staffing changes, we had a new case manager started January 8th, and case manager will be leaving on maternity leave February. Her name is Brittany, so she's just in the training phase of the work. So trends and impacts. So what we see is, and we don't have hard numbers on this, but I'm sure that everybody else can see the increase in small trailers, people living in small trailers. And of course, the inflation is impacting clients. There hasn't been any, the province hasn't increased benefit rates, so the benefit rates have stayed the same. So that's a challenge. Rent increases. Anybody who's looking to rent now, whether you're looking in the community or you're looking in the surrounding areas, rent is significantly higher. So that's a huge one. And for us, for our clients, a lot of our clients, they don't have any vehicles. So it's challenged because they don't have any local transportation to get to and from work. If you don't have a vehicle, then it's very challenging to exit the social assistance system. So the strategies, initiatives to address these things, service providers, we are continuing to cost share home repairs, as a result of the significant costs. Additional financial supports we've been providing to our clients using the Indigenous Services Canada inflation funding. We do the good food box for clients. We've been providing laundry vouchers. I'm not sure how long we can continue with that, but we've been doing that. And we provide the transportation service, of course, to attend our weekly programming activities. I just want to say that I don't want to forget this, but I'll wait till the client inflation payments. Where am I at here? So just some of the things that we're working on. It's a pretty big job here to transition from real to the AD Morrison system. So our staff, one of the things, we had some challenges with the server, just the whole transition to transition from one software system to the next because they're different. So right now, we've been working with Dave George. We've been working with Wayne because of the direct deposits. So Dave had to address some of the issues with the server. That solved. We got the system loaded now on some of the staff's laptops, and they're starting to look at that system and just figuring out how to navigate that system. And one of the big challenges that we have is to start inputting the client information. The client inflation payments. So that was dispersed in January. We've been dispersing those. Pretty consistent since COVID, since we've been getting funds from the federal government. $500 provided to families, $300 on average. So that's been a help to the clients. And that's in addition to the regular monthly assistance provided to the clients. And that's discretionary, of course. We have been receiving the funds. The letter goes to the chief. I get a copy, and then we track those payments here in our office, and case managers load the budgets, and we issue the payments to the clients. So old carpet removal, number 3 there, moving right along. So our staff is encouraged by this. One of the things that we're doing is we're working with housing to remove this old carpet that's in the building here, and I believe that they're going to put flooring down. So we're working with housing, and they have a contractor, I believe, that's going to come in and do that. So we have to work with a company to move all our furniture out. It's going to be fairly quick because part of the job's got to get done by end of the fiscal year, and then in the new fiscal year, the job's going to get finished. The joint social services table, I just want to highlight two areas on the joint social services table, and that's the cost of administration and the transitional support fund. So the cost of administration, that's been an issue for Ontario work sites, First Nations. Some of them receive, some of them are only financial sites and others are financial and employment. So the financial sites, they have a challenge with that because when you're a financial site, there's less that you receive based on the ministry's formula. So we're visiting that. Right now, we get $2,159 per case. So they look at an average case in the past 2 years. I think it's 2 years. And then they just basically times your caseload by that 2,159. That becomes your budget. So it's going to be the province has agreed to sit down, and there's going to be a working group established, and they're going to look at the cost administration for First Nations communities. And it's good. I think the joint social services table is a good forum to be able to raise some of the First Nations issues to the province. And that's been going on, I think, for the past 5 years, 6 years. The Transitional Support Fund is another one. The Transitional Support Fund goes back to 2013, I believe. There was a formula developed, and that's what it was. It was supposed to only be a transitional formula, but it never ever was. People never ever went back to the table and finished it. So they're looking at the Transitional Support Fund. So both of these things, it's formula based. So whenever there's a formula, you always got to make sure that it's going to be a fair formula. Probably same thing as band support funding. You gotta, or the OFNLP dollars. There's always a formula, and you always got to make sure that it's a fair formula for the higher populated First Nations communities. Challenging. It's challenging because I think it's challenging for the province because they have to make sure that the funding formula and distribution is going to be fair. It's going to be recognizing, the different challenges in First Nations communities. The delivery of social assistance and the 65 agreement. This is something that it's working on. It's with a consultant. It is what I'm trying to put together is an information piece for the chief and council and our senior staff. I don't think it's ever been done at Six Nations, but I'm looking at different, I guess you can say, parts of or what it means to deliver social assistance within the 65 agreement. So what we have to do is have a look at, or we deliver in accordance with the province's system. So it's important when we look at down the road, I guess, if there's ever going to be an alternative that's going to be explored. I think it's going to be a lot of work to do that. So what I'm trying to put together is an information piece where it's going to talk about, the authority to determine eligibility requirements, budget formula, the reporting requirements, the outcome expectations, the advantages and disadvantages of the current system versus, say, an alternative system. For example, right now, the current system, we have the Transitional Support Fund. The question then becomes is if there was another system, then what would happen with the Transitional Support Fund? Same thing with the employment component. The employment component of the Ontario Work System, that gives us an opportunity to help clients to enhance their employability and become independent, exit the social assistance system. And we also have discretionary assistance where if an individual has a unexpected situation and they need some financial help, the discretionary assistance is there. So I want to try to put this together so that at least there's a foundation of understanding when you look at the current system and any other systems that might be explored. In Ontario, we have the 65 agreement. In other provinces, they don't have the 65 agreement. What I don't know is the First Nations, what the social system is like in other provinces where they don't have the 65 agreement. So it's just going to be an information piece, and it'll always be there, and we can always build upon it as time changes. One of the things that's changed recently, I just found out last month, is the transitional support fund was funded outside the 65 agreement, and it was funded by the province. But recently, and I'm not sure when, but now the transitional support fund is funded within the 65 agreement. So the province gets reimbursed by the federal government a certain amount for the funds expended for the transitional support fund. So I just think that we need a good information piece, and I think it's going to be a good information piece for especially for those who may not know too much about the structure, the structure of how social assistance is delivered and how that relates to the 65 agreement.
Okay, thank you.
So that's a quick overview.
Okay,
Best I can do.
yeah, thank you, Sandy. Greg?
Yeah, hi Sandy. Thanks for the report.
Mhm.
Yeah, we talked about this a few times about aiding our seniors, right? Is that and now that it's over at health, because sometimes their expenses are above what we allot, right, for the senior release fund. And then and do you get much I know you do interact with social on that and health. And just for some of our members too, is that sometimes when the costs are above what they can get from the senior relief fund, how does that kick into the transitional fund? How does that work?
Yeah, so we work with the health staff when it comes to some of the challenges for the seniors. Say if there's a ramp and that ramp is expensive, then we can look at cost sharing the ramp with senior relief. Any item that comes forward from our seniors, if it's something that needs cost sharing, or if they can pay for it, they will. Recently we've been telling them, because we have additional funds, maybe they can refer if it's a roof repair or a furnace, some of the bigger items, then if we have the funds, then why not have us pay for that? So sometimes it's a three-party type approach. So there's times when we need to look at bringing in the family well-being coordinator, Jordan's principal, and our staff. And the senior relief, there's four. In the way I see it, there's four pots of money where we can rely on to come together and co-fund some of the bigger projects. And there are some big projects, especially when you look at septic systems. It's a significant amount of money. So that collaboration is very, very important. And one of the things that I did in the past year was have meetings actually with the senior staff just to make sure that we stay connected. And we know, for me, I have no problem telling anybody that we get, I think it's 195,900 for the transitional support fund, right? So I think it's just good for us to stay connected and make sure that we are on the same page when it comes to collaboration and co-funding when we have to co-fund when we get those big asks or the challenges.
Okay, great. Cynthia, then Dale.
Sandy, a couple of questions. Who sits at this joint social services table? And you noted two issues that people's dealing with is the cost of OW admin and the transitional support.
Mhm.
The cost of admin, it seems, is especially an issue for First Nations or a challenge for First Nations communities. How does that OW cost of admin compare to the municipalities who provide that service?
My understanding is that the cost per case is what the province funds municipalities and First Nations. But some of the First Nations, because of their caseload is small, and of course their budget is small. So they're looking at, say, a base funding as opposed to funding based on cost per case and the number of cases. The Joint Social Services Table is technicians that works for some of the First Nations communities, and I believe that all the PTOs have representation at the table. The ministry, they have a lot of their senior staff that come to the meetings, as opposed to me just meeting with the local area office supervisor here in Hamilton. So it's an opportunity to communicate, I guess you can say, at a higher administrative level or senior level when we look, and being able to sit down and talk with individuals who are in a position to move things along and to make some decisions. Sometimes there are requests that get put on a table. The ADM, would say that's beyond her level of decision making, and sometimes I guess it has to go to cabinet. Not too many of those, but when it comes to budgets and expenditures, sometimes it has to go to cabinet. And I'm not sure. Like I'm on the outside looking in when you look at different things that have to go to cabinet.
Okay, follow-ups, Cynthia?
Yeah. You also note in your report, Sandy, that you're doing a project with respect to delivery of social assistance. In that project, or are you going to actually capture the cost of OW administration?
Yeah,
Versus,
I want to factor that in as well, and that's something a learning curve for me as well. I think the cost of administration, that's all internal, I guess you can say, discussions, and it goes back to when Ontario Works was first designed by the Harris government. He come in and it's formula based, and it's a learning curve for me to be able to understand, how the province designs, I guess you can say, the cost of administration, and also the federal government also is a party as well. So we get X amount of dollars from the federal government, and we get X amount of dollars from the provincial government. I think our federal contribution is about 970,000, I think. So they do have even when we have to load that in TPON, it's kind of a complicated, for as far as I'm concerned anyway. It's not a very user-friendly system that online system that the province introduced about 3 years back.
Okay,
But
so
yeah.
I have Dale, Melba, then Amos, and we'll wrap it up.
Good morning, Sandy.
Marndale.
I'm just looking at your comparative data for applications and looking at the single column, and it's got 303. And I don't know if this is a confidentiality thing, but I'm just looking at the age group in relation to individuals who are applying, and if it's younger single people able to work, and I guess your programming and services to get them into that field of getting them off, because I know OW was always a temporary process to get people back on their feet. So I was wondering if there was like the age group was, you know, in the generation where they can be working.
Yes. So we have, yeah, that's our highest, the singles, and I'm not, I mean, I'm not sure the reason for that, but one thing that I think about right off the bat is, you have single income when you're single, but if you're a couple, then at least you have two incomes coming in, so you're standing a little bit a better chance, I guess you can say, to take care of your expenses. But yes, we have a fair amount of singles, and the multiple barrier clients. Some of them, again, they have the education is low at times, the experience, mental health issues, addiction issues, those kind of things. So, but yeah, we do some good work. The Wilma General Awards were held over the weekend, and when those individuals come up to the stage, you just have a sense of pride when you see individuals move from being on the system to um, be enhancing their employability. And one of them, I think, has their own business, and the other one had some significant challenges. So now they're off the system and doing well.
Okay, good. Melba, then Amos.
Yeah, I had the same concern that Dale has expressed concerning singles. I see the huge number of 300 and some, as opposed to other parents, I guess caretakers that certainly have a less number. And I'm wondering why too. And I'm wondering about the requirements concerning, you mentioned addiction, for example. And I wonder about right now, when you see people pumping gas, for example, you got a lot of non-natives. And Tim Hortons, you got non-natives. And I'm wondering about the requirements to actually work. Are these people sick, or do they have other kind of problems other than addictions? So I'm wondering how that's managed with your workers. And then I have, I think another question.
I think one of the big problems or challenges is if if you don't have a car, then here in our community, you just can't jump on a bus and go to work, go to any place in the community. And owning a vehicle is very, very expensive. So I think that's a fairly big challenge, and that's one of the things that we do is we provide the transportation to the clients when they come and participate in our programming. So we pick them up in the morning, and then we give them a ride home. We do that too, helping them with ODSP. Our case managers help the clients with their ODSP applications. So yeah, there's just a broad range of barriers when it comes to our clients, but we do have some successes. Within the past, I think 4 or 5 months, there was one individual who was on assistance, and now he's working for council. So I believe that he passed his probationary period. So, but that's the thing, I guess. We service a very vulnerable population at times, multiple sometimes barriers. But we also have some success stories where our case managers work with the clients to help them become employable. And that's the whole intent of the employment component of Ontario Works, is we have funds to be able to help, whether somebody wants to get their GED or whether they want to get their license. We can help pay for license, any employment related costs that increases their level of employability.
Okay, you got another one?
Follow up, yeah.
Yep, go ahead,
I
Melba.
mentioned the word requirements. When it comes to rent, and singles are in households and supposedly pay rent, how does that work? Because I know 2 cases right now, someone actually gives the rent of 300 And the other, I guess, if you have children, I guess it must matter how many children you have, then that's $500 rent. I understand it doesn't always get to the homeowner who have taken these people in or they reside there for some reason, whether it's family or otherwise. How does that work?
Yeah, so with Ontario Works, there's the income reporting. That's it's a one page, I guess you can say. It takes five minutes to fill out. So, but if an individual doesn't come in and doesn't submit that report, and it gets close to the end of the month, then their benefits and the rent could be late, right? Because once we get it, our case managers have to input it into the system. Our finance staff have to produce a check. I sign it. It goes over to council. Council signs it. The council's finance staff, and then it comes back to us. So there's a bit of a process.
Oh,
Okay,
okay, I guess
so-
if I can follow up, I guess I misunderstand because I understand they get a lump sum, is what I was just told just yesterday, a lump sum, and the individual is not paying their rent to the homeowner. And they have children there also. So how does that work?
Yeah, if an individual is receiving their rent money, I guess you can say in some cases it's a situation between, if there's an issue, it's a landlord and tenant issue.
Oh, so they can sometimes keep the money and spend it on whatever, as opposed to giving the rent money to the homeowner where they live.
If an individual doesn't pay their rent, yeah, that could be problematic.
Okay, thank you.
Amos, then we'll wrap it up.
Thank you, Sandy. This is Amos. I'm all about looking at projections and trends and looking at our demographics. Is there an opportunity for you and like to meet together to look at that annually or every 6 months? I know we went through COVID and that's screwed up a lot of our demographics everywhere. I just hear you talk about your supports for employment assistance. Do you ever meet with GREC and look at their planning as well and see where you can plug in or they can plug in with you? Is there an opportunity, for instance, to all of you to all meet and look at your trends or your projections and even bring in dream catchers, because dream catchers fund some capital. My sister was a part of that. And so I was just wondering whether there's an opportunity for all of you as directors to meet annually perhaps and just look at what's the trend for the next year, if you can project. I'm all about social planning, so I hear some of the things that you're talking about. It even supports my advocacy for wraparound services. So I know I don't have all your statistics, but I would just like to look at those and maybe attend and just observe as a witness this kind of planning so that I'm comfortable representing my community. So I just want to know whether there's an opportunity for you to meet with all your colleagues in social
Yeah.
services and community.
Yeah, one of the things that I've thought about is looking at some kind of maybe employment advisory body. So right now, we deliver some employment services, not as much as great, but so our case managers do work with great staff if a client wants to enroll or participate in one of their programs. So, but if a client has an interest, a career interest, and Great doesn't provide that, then our case managers look at alternatives where they can help the client and what institution, I guess you can call, has that particular program available. Say if somebody wants to take a short-term wants to be a chef, then we would have to look at, okay, what are our options, or working at heights or forklift training, those kind of things. But yeah, we work with GREAT, we work with Polytech, we work with a number of different organizations, just depending on what the client's interested in. But I think it would be something to explore when you think of employment. We don't have a employment advisory body here at Six Nations, and maybe it would be good down the road to look at maybe a terms of reference and see how we can look at least under council. You know, we have health services, social services, we have public works, but under council, right now we don't have any employment advisory body, I guess. But maybe I've never seen the arrangement with GREAT, but maybe back in the day when GREAT was established, maybe that was the intent, is just to have GREAT handle all the employment and training, or fulfill the employment and training mandate for the community.
Follow up, Amos?
Yeah, just one quick comment. I just think it's so important if we're going to look at our trends and our projections, because, you know, Audrey and I are working on the education portfolio, and if our dropout rate is astronomical, then that's going to tell us what are we going to be looking at in trends and projections, because you're going to have more people who are single without an OSSD or OGD needing assistance. So I think we need to be proactive that way and look at our planning as a whole, as a community and as a society. That's the only reason why I'm suggesting this, and maybe that's what we can do going forward, is even have education there to look at the trends if our dropout rate is so high. We're always celebrating those who are successful, not those that fall through the rungs of the ladder. So I like to be proactive that way, and I commend you on your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sandy, for your information. Is there a mover to accept his information? Moved by Melba, second by Dale. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seen none, carried. Again, thank you, Sandy. Have a great day.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. We're meeting Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Have a good day, everybody.
So moving on to number 7, this is Chiefs of Ontario resolution. That the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council appoint. So we need a person and an alternate representative of the Chiefs of Ontario for the resolutions committee, just because we didn't have it in a resolution. Amos?
I'll volunteer because I'm presenting at this conference anyway.
Okay.
So I'm presenting a workshop.
So this is for the resolution committee. So
Oh.
this is just for the
Okay,
committee.
sorry.
Yeah. So I know Claire will be there with whoever's going as a technical. So is there someone else? I don't know if Cynthia, did you still want to, or oh, that's a different one than Cynthia's on? Okay, sorry, Cynthia. Audrey? Can you use your mic?
Last Chiefs of Ontario meeting we went to in Toronto, I was talking with Tracy Antone, and I was telling her that we received the resolution so late. It's hard for this council to read them over and give a council point of view, so we can assist Sherry Lynn with what our position is on all those resolutions. She said that she was the Chiefs of Ontario were looking for a representative from the unaffiliated First Nations. And she asked if we would like to be one of those, and I took it back to Sherry Lynn and the council. So that's why it's here. We need somebody in there so we can get our resolutions, know what they are ahead of time, so we can give insight and input for them. So who's really good at resolutions? Yeah.
Thank you, Audrey. So is there anyone to appoint someone, and then we need an alternate? Melba, did you want to
I just got a
go?
question,
Oh.
yeah, maybe whoever's going to take it, how much time is that gonna take? Is that just before a meeting and after, or how is that gonna work, do you know? Just so we'll know who's going to do that.
Before the event. So Nathan said they meet once before the event, and then kind of all through the event, just to make sure that the resolutions are all, everybody is aware of them. So how many events do they have, Nathan? A year?
Special chiefs and AOs.
So twice a year for the resolutions. So is there someone who wants to sit there for the resolutions? So yeah, if not, then we can do that for the External Relations Committee, and then Claire can go on there also. Yep, go ahead, Cynthia. Okay, so we have Cynthia. Is there an alternate? Amos is the alternate. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Next, go to number 8. So the First Nations Community Wellness Conference to be held March 19th to the 21st at the Metro Toronto Convention Center in Toronto. So 2 counselors to attend, whoever's on in the well-being portfolio committee. So Melba and Hazel, you want to attend? All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. The next one for 8.2, Chiefs of Ontario Annual COA Great Lakes Executive Council Representatives Meeting on March 4th and 5th at the Community Center in Sarnia. 1 or 2, whoever's on the environment, if you want a counselor to go, if there's just 1 or 2 the counselors to go. Whoever's on the environment.
This one is, yeah. Let's see. Oh,
Yep. So even Rod's going, but even if 1 counselor wants to go. So Dale or Elena, want to go? One of them? One of you? Okay, we'll put Elena to attend. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. So this was the number 3. This was a recommendation because it was short of time. Six Nations of the Grand River Council, post approved, Chief Sherry Lynn Hill, Councilors Dean Hill and Greg Fraser to attend the Indian Day School Court Appeal held on Tuesday, February 6th, 2024 in Toronto, Ontario. Is there a mover? Moved by Hazel, seconder by Amos. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seen none, carried. Waive second reading. Hazel, second by Amos. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Seen none, carried. So let's go to the council reports for the Roma conference. Dean and Greg. Dean, did you want to go first?
Morning, everybody. So myself and Greg and Chief has attended the Roma conference January 21st to January 23rd. Meetings mostly were just presentations within the Grand Hall they had and various other MPP meetings as well. Couple of let's see here. So a couple of the meetings with the MPPs, I'm going to let the chief and her staff during their report to kind of go really in depth with some of the information on it as well. They have more of the outcomes and various things like that. But we did meet with Greg Whitford, Andrea Kanjan, Sylvia Jones, and Bonnie Cromby for the Liberal Party. Now, for the Roma itself, just the rural matters brought forward to the municipalities of Ontario. A couple of the presentations in the Grand Hall were Lisa Thompson, the MPP of Agriculture and Rural Ontario, mostly introducing different programs such as the Rural Economic Development Program, the RED. It's just a cost sharing program. And she said it was open that day until the February 21st. Little things about that is just you need 50% financial commitment by the applicant to receive that type of funding. And let's see here. A lot of talks about agriculture, food security, those type of things. So it was really interesting to see that a lot of the issues that municipalities are having are just kind of the same things that are going on here, housing, um, food security. They also talk a little bit more about immigration, and we do. Within the conference too, another speaker has spoken. It was Shane Fieldman. He was like a motivational speaker speaking about communication, community and relationships, and just telling kind of everyone at the Roma, you know, talk to people. And that's pretty much all he was saying there. It was good though. It was very good because it did get a lot of people talking, and I've talked to a few people there as well, just to kind of get an insight on what I personally don't know of how some municipality councils are ran. A lot of them, two of the councilors, to be honest, I forget where they were from. I do have their names, but they did mention that a lot of their funding that they do mostly comes from their property tax. About 70 to 80% of everything they do comes from property tax. So that's really eye-opening to see that they don't really get too much funding at all from what they say. Now, another one big presentation that happened within the Grand Hall, you can say, was Doug Ford speaking. The various little highlights he said, right, was, you know, over 10 years, 50 billion for 50 new hospital projects. And another one was Kinga Surma, MPP of Infrastructure, also spoke on 185 billion over 10 years in Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. Now, a lot of these funds are also loan-based and for municipalities when I kind of looked into it a bit. So I don't think it's something that we can quite pursue. Maybe we can. I don't really know though. Let's see here. So a lot of the highlights are going to be within the chief's report on the personal MPP meetings we had. They were just kind of one after another, and there was quite a bit of them. And then the last thing we can recommend, talk about a little discussion here is just that the credit being at some of these conferences here, which is going to be elaborated a little bit more. Speaking at some of these things, saying basically, I know he did state that if you want to do business in Southern Ontario, you speak to the credit. So he's kind of overriding a lot of the political power there, I guess. Interesting to hear. And that's about it from my end. You can go ahead, Greg. Thank you.
Yep, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I know that the chief's office will be giving, again, as Dean pointed out, a detailed summation of the meetings with Minister Tangen, Rickford, and also Jones. They will be more in depth than I would. I did have a chance to follow up on a meeting I had with Dale Leclerc from the Canada Post Corporation during the inauguration of the stamp ceremony at Woodland Cultural Center last year. I represented, I was a stand-in for Mark Hill. One of the three of the requests that we did was of course, we addressed this taxation on our stamps. I also talked about the funding of the new cultural center at Woodland, and also that at Canada Post Corporation, which should be, because of Truth and Reconciliation, should consider helping out in that regard. The other thing, of course, was having our own postal code here, rather than having three different postal codes. It would be better than, because we are a nation. We're not split up into municipalities. So that was one of the things that we pushed forward. Now, since that time, we've done a follow-up on that because the person I spoke with, Dale Leclerc, had been replaced soon after that. So I did have a chance to speak with Andy Patterson, and also a younger one of, I think, his technicians as well. I think we're going to we did a follow-up letter to that, and we will be having a meeting fairly soon on those issues. So that's just a follow-up that I think was requested by council earlier, and we're going to be proceeding with that. In terms of the minister meetings, just generally speaking with the Minister of Health, and we asked for two main things, and one of them is, of course, doing a set-aside for a digital imaging license here with the Haudenosaunee Health Service. She was non-committal on that, of course, but we did press the fact that we do have a need, But we do have a large service area, and that should be considered. The second part of that was to liaise with a representative from the Ministry of Health to work with our Director of Health, Deb Jonathan. And we have, of course, a myriad of health issues that we have to address. So I believe that is in works, and that's in the process. Of course, the Minister of Environment, again, we always reiterate the collaboration that we need when it comes to illegal dumping. And of course, we're going to continue to work on that as well. The other thing with the mayor, the new Liberal leader in Ontario there, and her name is Bonnie Crombie. She met with us as well with some of the other mayors, I believe, of the municipalities in Toronto. And we just gave them an update on Six Nations. They were quite receptive as we gave our interactions, of course, with our sister nation, the Mississaugas, as well as our interactions, of course, with our internal groups here, our cultural groups that interact with them as well. So that was quite a fruitful meeting. It went on for about an hour. And then I hope that sometime we may have the possibility of meeting with the mayor of Toronto, Mayor Wong. So those were all fruitful meetings, I believe. And also to establish again more of relationship building. And because of course we have a lot more issues to discuss.
Excellent. Can I have a Hazel?
I just wanted to follow up and ask with regard to the comment that you made, Dean, that Doug Ford indicated there would be more hospitals erected in Ontario alone. I wonder if there's chances that Six Nations could get one of those, or like an emergency center or whatever. I don't know if anybody knows the answer, but it's a comment.
Put that on the radar. Okay. Audrey?
Yes, we've been asking for a hospital here for a couple of years now. And we have that one proposal, I don't even know where it is, where we had these non-members wanting to build a health center over at the Oneida Business Complex. And they had a big plan for that, and that was a few years ago now. I don't know if they're still doing that, but I think that anything built like a hospital should be under Six Nations. Should be staffed by us. We make sure that the doctors are well trained, and to make sure that we get the help that we need for all of our members. And the other comment is just on these reports. Is it possible to have the people who submitted their the reports with their names on them? Like who from the chief's office is submitting that? Who's writing these reports? Christopher? Or Claire, or who?
Christopher and Claire.
Oh, can you please put your names on them so I know who's doing what? Thank you.
Can I have a mover to accept as information? Moved by Audrey, second by Amos. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Next is the chief's update. So my updates is I was invited by the Ontario Native Women's Association to give opening remarks at the She Is Wise conference in Niagara Falls on January 22nd. Focus on strengthening and building Indigenous women's leadership. While I was there at the conference, I had a chance to speak with the Ontario Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, the Honorable Michael Thibodeau, and invited him to come to Six Nations for a meeting to discuss the community's needs in the realm of mental health and addictions. My office is in touch with Minister Thibodeau's office, and arranging a meeting at this time. Rama, what happened with there? We met with the Minister of Environment, Andrea Cajun, talked about multiple issues, finding ways to prevent outside companies from trucking unlawful soil onto our territory without permission or contaminated checks, holding joint conversations aimed at environment protection on an ongoing basis. So again, these meetings are only like 15 minutes. So to get enough in. The next one is Minister of Health, Sylvia Jones, the challenges related to funding in the government and governance that affect our healthcare and numerous and complex. Having a regular channel of communication is key to making progress. And this meeting was the first step, and they're connected with the director, Deb Jonathan. We also expressed our interest in building a medical and diagnostic imagery facility on the territory and the need for OHIP coverage for fees for our members. Also, we met with Minister of Indigenous Affairs, Greg Rickford. We also asked him to arrange a meeting between myself and the Premier so we can finally get provincial action on some of our top issues. We met with the new leader of the Liberal Party, Bonnie Crombie, and members of her caucus. We're continuing to work with Haldeman Norfolk counties to seek funding to connect homes in the south part of our community with the water treatment plant in Nanticoke. All in all, I was very successful the couple of days in Toronto, but finally I want to note that the Premier began his remarks at the conference saying there is no government in the history of Ontario that has worked closer with First Nations and done more for the First Nations than our government. And there's no Premier that's been more accessible ever. I mentioned this comment to every politician we met at the Roma conference. We will be holding the Premier accountable for this. If he wants to boast about strengthening of his relationships with First Nations, then we need him to take action. I also invited each politician that we met to Six Nations. In the follow-up conversation, we sent also by my office to the politicians, and thank you for their time. So we did a follow-up. Also, Greg talked about the Canada Post regarding the sale tax on the stamps, the need of a postal code just for Six Nations. The border mobility issues update. I received a response from the Canada Border Service Agency that the Peace Bridge is still accepting cash as a form of payment. However, the CBSA representative advised that the tolls and payment methods are mandated by the Buffalo and Fort Erie Public Bridge Authority. The Chief's office has reached out to the Transport Canada, the department that plays the lead role in the Bridge Authority. So we'll keep the community updated on that. So you can use cash at and again, it's just the Peace Bridge. The J Treaty Border Alliance has been pushing the Canadian government to recognize the treaty and grant entry rights accordingly. The late development is that the federal government, CRNAC, is proposing draft legislation that would grant entry to members of federally recognized tribes on presentation of the recognized piece of ID. The J Treaty Border Alliance is giving feedback to the federal officials to ensure any legislative proposals that proceed in no way undermines First Nations rights. Then we got into the Chiefs of Ontario, the Bill C-53. M&O has been allocated over 1.3 million to undertake the internal projects on new Indigenous-led natural climate solutions, which has potential for the M&O to acquire lands for conservation and restoration. This is concerning for various reasons. That is a direct example of Canada contradicting their claim that Bill C-53 will have no impact on First Nations treaty and constitutionally protect rights in Ontario, and displays that the M&O's clear intentions to claim land. As of Monday, February 5th, Indigenous Northern Affairs has completed its study of the Bill C-53. The bill will now go back to the House for the reporting stage. There could be additional amendments decided by the Speaker of the House. Then the bill goes to the third reading and is passed to the House of Commons. Also with that, we sent a letter to, sending a letter to Minister Rickford regarding our opposed against Bill C-53, because that came in our discussions also. Six Nations of the Grand River Summit, that the event will be present, it will be on February 7th and at the Gathering Place. For that, it was distributed to all the municipalities and politicians. Yeah. The 19th. Oh, that was on February 7th. We sent it out. So sorry, we'll take place March 19th from 5 till 8 at the Gathering Place. Municipal engagement, Mayor Chow. She reached out with a letter, and my staff has begun discussions with Mayor Chow's office to determine when to hold an introductory meeting in March. Meeting with the Six Nations Police on January 31st. Introductory meeting with Tim Bombery, the Deputy Chief, to discuss community safety. Given the increase of occurrence that jeopardizes community safety lately, the goal of this meeting was to create a reoccurring meeting space between the chief and the Six Nations Police to share information related to safety of the community. And community members are also citing community safety concerns. Meeting with various community members. I've engaged in numerous meetings and phone calls, community members who have reached out to me. I am grateful for the information shared and the diverse range of ideas presented during these interactions. I'd like to assure you of my availability and for further discussion and problem solving with community members. So again, that's it in a nutshell. Yes. Cynthia, then Audrey.
Yeah, that AG who's avoiding us like the plague. I know you said you're gonna follow up the premier to see if he can get that meeting happening, maybe a step or two before the premier. Do they like this, you know how it is, follow the lines of authority, so to speak. But I wonder if you directly called, what the heck's his name, Rickford? Directly called Rickford and let him know the attempts we've made and that we've been unsuccessful, and remind him of what the boast of the premier was. There's never been any party so helpful. I don't know what that has been, but nonetheless. But then immediately follow up in writing and CC both Rickford and the premier, and then you've got it documented, the attempts that we've made. That I would just suggest that to begin with, see if he can get
So
any movement there.
yeah, so my understanding, hopefully we're looking at end of February, beginning of March, there, to meet with the premier.
No, just, yeah, that was, remember that meeting I attended, that, what the heck was it? The Coup Chiefs Council? Yeah, it's the 26th. And then the next meeting is the 27th, but they're supposed to have a prep meeting. And usually those things get all ahead of time. Here's the issues that we'll be addressing, just to whoever's putting that together at the Chiefs of Ontario, and somebody must be sort of in charge to say, here's the issues that we're going to address. And usually the premier's office, they'll want that ahead of time just to make sure we have our items on there, including this one. And I don't know if you get to take people, but remember when Lands Resources were giving their presentation, they were mentioning this issue.
Okay, like that. Audrey? Can you use your mic? Sorry.
In the way. Thank you. My question, I guess, goes out to our political staff. The Métis Nation of Ontario seem to be winning with their push forward to be recognized as Indigenous. It seems like they're getting money, and it seems like they're getting land. So can you tell me what more steps we should be taking, as well as how do you see this playing out? Like, they seem to be moving ahead quite steadily.
Go ahead, Christopher.
Now, Audrey, there are a number of developments on this, and we'll be giving a much more in-depth briefing during the next meeting. But basically, the legislation is proceeding still. There are multiple more steps for the legislation to go through, and so there are a number of things that we can do, including encouraging everybody to write to their members of parliament, to write to senators as well. I shouldn't say their members of parliament. Six Nations as a community has one member of parliament, but we think that there's merit in reaching out to all members of parliament on this, as well as all senators. The legislation is still in the House of Commons, and after that will have to go to the Senate. The amendment process is still at play. And so that's still continuing on. And the Chiefs of Ontario, and we've been involved in this as well, have also been making efforts to encourage the province of Ontario to formally review a decision it made in 2017 to recognize the Métis Nation of Ontario. We believe that the Métis Nation of Ontario's claims are spurious, are not well-founded. And so we're asking the provincial government to review that decision, to make public all the information that it considered at the time. And Chief Hill, as she mentioned in her presentation, has written a letter to Minister Rickford to formally request that, and we've had conversations with him and others as well to ask them to do that. Chiefs of Ontario is also asking the provincial government to do this, and we believe that when the provincial government makes public the information that it used to make this recognition, which we believe was erroneous and mistaken, and conducts a review of it, we believe that that review will then hopefully be taken into account by federal politicians and encourage them to stop going down this path. So there's kind of a lot of things happening at the same time. It's an ongoing issue that's going to continue to develop, and we can provide more detail later on as well.
Go ahead, Claire.
I just want to add to one other kind of thing that we have been going on is outlining a draft joint statement within the Iroquois caucus to be, so that's in its draft forms. We're kind of waiting for approval, and then hopefully that kind of joint statement, collective statement will help as well and can be publicized and shared in advocacy.
Go ahead, Audrey.
And where do the AFN sit on this, since the governments look to them for their input?
They've generally speaking expressed opposition as well, but this campaign is being led by Chiefs of Ontario, and that's principally because the sort of leading institutional actor on the Métis side is the so-called Métis Nation of Ontario, which the Manitoba Métis oppose. So I think that the number of voices that are speaking out are increasing on this, and we're hoping that that momentum can continue building before the federal parliament passes this legislation in the coming months.
Yep, go ahead, Audrey.
Will we be giving the community all the information, the background information of what this issue is all about, as well as all the information on who to write to, like give them a template letter so that they can use that to address the concerns and help make our voice stronger?
Yeah, that's definitely an important part of it too. So as Christopher kind of mentioned in the beginning, we are working on giving you guys like a more in-depth look at just this one issue. And then I kind of am envisioning that's where we can talk about tangible next steps, and that I am foreseeing as one of them, as long as the rest of you do. So we would bring that back. I believe it's in 2 weeks, but the next PL.
And I would also add that there have also been some communications products that are being worked on by the Chief's office and by the comms team that have gone out to the community, and some others that will go out in the future too.
Okay, can I have a mover to accept this information? Yep, go ahead. Cynthia? Can you, yeah.
Sorry, there's a report in our basket from Glenn Hare. Is that what was raising all the eyebrows? because it's at approximately 12.8 million investments. Within this funding, it's on the new Indigenous-led natural climate solutions. And within that, MNO was allocated over 1.3 to undertake an internal project that involves potential for the MNO to acquire lands for conservation and restoration. See, to acquire, keyword.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was why I wanted to bring that up in the update, because it is coming in quickly.
Yeah,
So,
just to
eh,
clarify
oh,
on that letter, what that decision does is it both gives funding and recognition of territorial responsibility on the environmental file to the Métis Nation of Ontario. So the question would logically have to be asked, why is the Métis Nation of Ontario being given territorial responsibility rather than the relevant local First Nations? So.
is there a mover to accept his information? Oh, okay, go ahead.
I just, I know we might be going into another federal election soon. You know, Justice is not doing a very good job or whatever. And I think Poilievre's gonna take off, right? But in the meantime, we still have the confidence and supply agreement between the NDP and the Liberals. I think we really need to catch on to that. And I think the chief, you should go and meet with Jeet Singh if you can and lay out all of this. Like, these are our issues, just so that he knows, because he's supporting the Liberal government. I mean, the Quebecois not going to, the party's not going to help us, but Jeet Singh would. So I think maybe we could try and get an audience with him. I shouldn't say audience, but I mean, a meeting with him, with Jeet Singh, and just lay out all this stuff, including our local NDP representatives from the parties. So I think that needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Go ahead, Christopher, because we have.
Thank you, Councillor. Just on that, brief update on that. We should have a follow-up meeting with the leader of the federal NDP, Jagmeet Singh. We did have a meeting with him during the summer between Chief Mark Hill and discussed this and a few other issues. And he agreed to try to prioritize advocacy on the excise tax for us. And we wanted his support so that NDP members of the House of Commons Committee would agree to study the excise tax issue. But I do think it's warranted to go back and talk to him about prioritizing this issue as well, especially given recent developments. And we are also seeking a meeting with the provincial leader of the NDP as well, and they've agreed to that meeting. We just have to finalize the date.
I mean, all our issues can go there, even Gawaneo, languages, everything can go in to that meeting and as it being an agenda item, just so they know. I mean, he's going to probably
Exactly.
support the Liberals again the next time around, so that Poilievre doesn't get in.
Good one. Claire, then accept his information.
Sorry, just really quick. I just want to build on the point that you made too, because I think next week when you get into the conversations that you're having and building the mandates, that will help to build, I don't want to use a database, but I'm drawing a blank, but like a key kind of set of that kind of information that can be pulled from and presented to all of you as you go out on your committees and whatnot.
Can I have a mover to accept his information? Moved by Greg, second by Elena. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Number 11, motion to adjourn, to go to in camera. Hazel, moved by Hazel, second by Cynthia. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Thank you for joining us today, everyone, and have a great day.